Welcome back. Well, we're currently on stage 6 load shedding for the second evening in a row. It has a huge impact on your daily life, but also just the most massive impact on business. People who try to make a living and make and sell products and employ people. Mtho Xulu is the president of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Xulu, good afternoon to you. When you have stage 6 load shedding, what impact does that have on your members? I mean, it must be crippling.
Good afternoon, Stephen. Stage 6, it's definitely crippling because now what you have actually, you have at least half the day, the normal work day being in the dark. How do you work like that? You know, and it goes into the evenings, so you can't even catch up in the evenings, and it has a devastating impact across the board of all our members. And, you know, it's bad because 2 years ago, stage 6 was actually something extraordinary. It seems like now it's a stage that we need to get used to, and it's very damaging to the South African economy, and especially our members who have already complained about the impact.
Do you think some of your members are just going to have to give up? They just can't operate.
They cannot operate, and what we are finding ourselves in is that it really does seem like load shedding now is part and parcel of the South African economy, because it doesn't sound like you know, it's going to be something that can end very soon. There is talk that load shedding must end, but the actions don't match the commitments to end load shedding. And our take as the members of SACI is that at least until 2025, stages between 2 and 4 are going to be part of our economy. And we need now to actually start building an economy that accommodates and condones load shedding at the rate that we are going, with the kind of intervention that we are seeing from those who are responsible.
So where do we go next? I mean, you represent business. I presume you'd like to see, firstly, a solution. Secondly, maybe a role for the private sector in that solution.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate because we don't want to be seen as the private sector to be abandoning a public service. But now our hand is forced, moving from us investing in energy to build the country to us investing in energy because it's a desperate move. And the unfortunate thing that once you have the private sector relying on self-generation, it's going to be devastating for the fiscals, because the people who are going to move first are those that Eskom actually gets money from. So businesses that consume a lot and pay substantial amounts of energy bills are the first ones to move. And Eskom will be left with, unfortunately, smaller consumers, and in some cases, consumers that don't pay. So you're going to, you know, polarize society when you have private sector generating for themselves, because private sector will generate for their own businesses, and you have a public service that is not properly capacitated and will lose the best of its customers.
I mean, there's a huge amount that goes on here. I mean, some people try and fend for themselves. That means we sort of give up on networks. If we give up on networks, by which I mean power networks, you can't use the rich to help subsidize the poor. All sorts of other things collapse. And companies are in this ecosystem. They're all a part of it. It all rests on each other. It all needs to work together. I mean, in a way, the networks seem to be breaking down, and that's going to have an impact on your members.
It's going to have an impact on our members. It's going to affect the whole ecosystem, like you say. We consider ourselves as a constructive piece of society. As private sector, I know sometimes we are bashed that we are self-serving, but we, as the modern private sector, we consider ourselves as part of the solution. And we will gladly love to continue to pay and support a network as an ecosystem that supports everyone who's connected to it. But if our hand is forced like this, for to have businesses spending for themselves, it's going to have a devastating impact in the short term. But over time, business people want to continue to operate. And once they start migrating from these networks, the country then becomes something else. We don't want to move away from these networks, but over time, I think our hand is being forced, and private sector will eventually get to a stage where they'll have to build a country within a country.
I don't know how far you want to go down this. Sometimes blame doesn't help, sometimes it does. The Energy Minister, Mtho Xulu, told News 24 today, as they reported, that it's unfair to blame government or Eskom or him for the problems. Do you think he's right to say that?
I think what you do is that you look at who is responsible for it. Now, we don't want to blame anyone, but someone must be accountable for it. You know, you have a management, you have workers and team there, you have a board, you have a shareholder, and the ultimate shareholder being the state. So, who do you blame? You don't blame people just because you enjoy bashing them in public. You blame them because you're actually demanding accountability. And if people are accountable for generating energy and keeping Eskom alive, those same people who are in those positions are the ones that we must ask questions from. So it's not blaming, it's calling for accountability. And, we can't shift the buck around because I don't run ESCOM, so you can't ask me to keep the lights on. But the people who have convinced us that they are responsible custodians of ESCOM, they must at least give us the answers and give us a line of sight of where we are going with ESCOM. So it's not blame game for public bashing. It's calling for accountability so that we can find solutions.
I sometimes find, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I sometimes find that everyone's arguing about it all the time, that I just don't see sort of anything being implemented. I mean, okay, we can blame Eskom, that's fine, but there's such a long history to it. I don't know if we can blame the people at Eskom now. I know some people do. We could blame governments. Okay, that's fine, but that doesn't come up with a solution. People attack you as the business sector, saying people want to privatize Eskom. I don't know if that's true. The point I'm trying to make is, do we need to just stop arguing and start working?
That's what we need. Look, ESCOM, over the past, 5 years, let's say, have come up with what they consider as the 9-point plan to turn around ESCOM. During COVID, there was an acceleration on maintenance. So there are certain things that ESCOM had promised the country that were going to happen. And I'm saying at the very least, let us rally behind those commitments and implement them. And those who are responsible for the implementation must account on how far we are. Because the country seems to accept that there have been some challenges in ESCOM and the fleet is old. There's a number of other things that everyone raises depending on which argument you want to drive. But there are certain strategies that have been publicized and have been adopted by boards, adopted by cabinet, which at the very least must be implemented. Because had we tracked from the 2018-2019 9-point plan to where we are now with the accelerated maintenance from the hard lockdown during COVID, where are we? I mean, let's keep the country abreast on where we are what we are doing. So we don't want different solutions from different quarters of society. We are saying at the very least what ESCOM has promised the nation. Let us track the implementation thereof. Let's understand where the challenges are, so that we have a greater sense of where we are going. Because this stage 6 that you have now came out of nowhere. So we're actually now writing a new chapter at ESCOM of potentially a workforce that is now very able to go on an illegal strike. Stage 6 now going on for more than a day. So I'm just saying that, and that is not connected to any of the commitment that ESCOM has been making over the years. So as a country, we need to stop blaming, focus on one point, and if we have nothing to focus on, let's focus on what ESCOM has promised us over the years, and let at the very least implement those commitments, which I'm saying for the past 5 years. Because the past 5 years was supposed to be a few years of renewal and turning around ESCOM. Where are we on that? How do we get the country around those things? And let us understand where we are lacking, where we've succeeded, and how far do we think we can take this turnaround that we've been discussing for a number of years as a country.
Mr. Xulu, I sometimes feel a sense of despair and anger over electricity, that people are just so frustrated by it. I mean, I feel that too, I'm afraid. How important is leadership here? I mean, yes, we saw Pravin Gordhan yesterday, the minister, and I thought that was an important moment. Yes, Greta Matashi clearly has spoken to, as the energy minister has spoken to one media outlet, but I sort of still just don't get the sense of people moving in one direction to alleviate that feeling of frustration that people face, that your members face.
Well, look, leadership all the way to the top. I understand the president returned to the country yesterday from the G7 summit, and I read a snippet that he has, through his spokesperson, said load shedding must come to an end, and almost to an end now. But I think we must not make this sound bites as a country. I think we must pull together, because we know that it's multifaceted. There's a number of concerns, a number of challenges around the country, and everything that we consider to be a challenge with ESCOM, there is someone who's responsible for turning it around. And we need to pull together as a country. I mean, I hate to use the COVID, or the unity against fighting COVID, but it's the most recent example of how we at least try to get together to fight a common enemy. And I think now the energy crisis and the electricity problem at ESCOM is probably our new enemy. Why don't we pull together and let us heighten the state of this crisis? And I don't think South Africans will not support the president if he calls for greater action and greater agency on ESCOM. I think we just need to have that kind of push, because what we have now, you have a little bit being done here and there. I mean, for instance, let's just take how the strike is seemingly being resolved. It seems like some interventions were made promises are being made that the strike is over. But are we dealing with the root causes? Are we really dealing with this as a crisis, or is it just something that we are peppering over because Stage 6 has now shocked the nation into what we have now? So yes, leadership must come up. I'm saying we must heighten this thing at the highest level of crisis ranking. And yes, those who, as I said earlier, those who in the chain of responsibility must have a greater sense of public accountability of where we are. And once we have the clarity and the public accountability and us rallying around a similar cause, I can vouch the support of business to that support, but we have to have a clear charted path of what we are doing, and business will support a clear and a scientific based solution to Eskom's problems.
Mtho Xulu, thank you, President of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Do appreciate the time.